All right, you guys, we are back for another week of Tai Chi at the dojo. Welcome back to all my regulars. If you're new, a special welcome to you. See if you can make it through to the end of the video before you're disillusioned. We're doing another set of water movements because, look at you guys, we did it. We conjured some rain here in Tucson. We were stuck in the middle of a drought. We're still in the middle of a drought, but contrary to the forecasts, I think a day or two after we did this, it rained here in Tucson, and so we actually did it. Yay! So we'll try to get a little more rain, conjure up a little more rain just by doing these watery Qigong and Tai Chi movements. Very symbolic. Symbolism, remember, cooling. The water element is corresponds to the dead of winter. We're certainly not there, at least I'm not when I'm making this. And let's do some shoulder rolls, you guys. But the qualities of water, because water is just all about Tai Chi, and Tai Chi is all about water. The qualities of water that we are most concerned with is just this, Tai Chi is so yielding, but Tai Chi, like water, doesn't yield just for the sake of yielding. It perseveres, and it eventually reaches its level or its goal. So it always succeeds. You can't stop water. So water and Tai Chi, both our movements have this yielding aspect, but they persevere and eventually get through. But perseverance is not stubborn. It's just relentless. And again, relentless is sort of a loaded term. I'm going around the other way. It's not relentless in a mean way. It's just inevitable, right? So that would be a good way of thinking about your practice. If you're concerned with, are you progressing in your practice? Even if you don't notice it, yes, the answer is yes, 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 yes. It's inevitable. You always do. And generally speaking, Tai Chi, and they say the same thing with Aikido, is you practice, practice, practice. You don't notice any improvement, and then suddenly you feel like you're at a whole new level, and you never know when it's going to creep up on you like that. Let's do our neck movements. Up and down, 3 types of neck movements. So there's a lot more metaphors for water. There's even, in Chinese symbolism, there is a form, going side to side, there's a form of water in the Bagua that is, well, I'll show you the Bagua. You guys keep moving your head from side to side. This is the Bagua that I've been working off of, and I have all my notes on. The Bagua is the Tai Chi symbol, surrounded by the 8 trigrams, and they all have significance. And that might not focus because I've got it on infinite focus so that it doesn't always go woo woo and refocus on me when I'm doing the form. So it doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you that. But so, for instance, let's look straight ahead and move the head from side to side. So water traditionally, it's calm, and this is not like happy water. It's abysmal and dangerous. Oh boy. There's other forms of water like lake, which is joyous, joyful, and then there's another water. There's river, sometimes confused with lake. But I don't do too much with the Bagua. Why? Because I've noticed a lot of variability. You'll see that, you'll see it completely spun around. So it's not like my Bible, but we can look at it later. And because for the 8 trigrams, there's also the 8 fundamental energies of Tai Chi. So we know the 4 fundamentals, Pung, Ji, Lu, An. Pung is, well, we'll go over that later anyway, but then there's the second 4 the secondary energies, and they're loaded. Our form is full of them. So we'll review some Qigong that we did last week, maybe add another one, and then we'll look at the water in our form, and then we'll do our form. So massage the neck and shoulders. We're just doing this any old way. We're not doing pressure point massage as far as I know, but you can if you know it. And we'll get somebody in here that can really show us exactly where to massage our neck and shoulders soon to get for the most benefit, or for whatever benefit you're looking for. Anyway, so later we'll do our form, and then after we do our form, I'll show you some of the movements later on in the form that correspond to water. And then if we have time, we'll do a little bit of our movements with our strap or our rope. So go around up. If you forgot, go look for a strap later on, or think about that. Okay, great. So how about for our first one, let us do... Oh, let me show you something else. So last week I was telling you we were using our beak hand or our hook hand, and I'm going to show you a little close up. It's this hand here. The four fingers and the thumb are together, okay? And it's usually down in Tai Chi, but when it's facing up, it's called Goshu, and I noticed last week that it felt really good to place this in our back, in our kidneys, right? And I thought, boy, this reminds me of something. I'm like, what does it remind me of? And I felt that this was gathering a lot of energy, right? This is not just our single whip hook hand, right? So I remembered from yoga, okay, this is the Semana mudra or the Mukula Mudra. And this is really healing. Anything you press this against it's very healing. So remember, the water corresponds to the kidneys and the entire urinary tract, which we got to give a lot of love to our urinary tract, because as I mentioned last week, it's great when it's working fine, but when it's not working fine, boy, you'll really wish it was. So this is what I'll be doing when I have my hands behind my back today, right? So this is what I'm doing. So now that you've seen that, and it feels so good. So now that you've seen that, I'll put the gloves on. You'll notice I'm not wearing black because I looked at the video last week and I can't even see what I'm doing. So how can you? So in this class, orange is always right, yellow's left. So let's do our first Qigong. This is the most basic. We're just reviewing it. You know, I'm sure you know it. It's very easy, but it's the most basic fifth element Qigong. There's a ton of different movements for the fifth element, water, in the fifth element, in the five elements practice. But okay, so let's tell you what it's not. And you can do these along with me. It's not wild goose flaps. It's wings, but we love this movement. Okay, it's not separate the clouds. Hands come up and they separate the clouds, but we love this movement, but it's not that. Okay, what it is we're going to gather clouds, and then the rain falls to earth, and you should feel this rain falling on you, washing over you. Okay, so if we were going to start from nothing, we'd start with our Goshu hands, or we can't use the yoga mudra in a Tai Chi class. So Goshu hands, and so if we were going to do that again, so we just come out basically, and in a lot of these you'll see just sort of playing with the surface of of the water, and then it's not very precise, and then we'll just gather clouds. But we don't have to do that each time, and we don't have to bring our hands into our back. So just feel how good this feels. Gather clouds, and then rain falls to earth. So this time we don't have to play around with the water. We can just do this a couple more times. How about one more time? See, my hands are open. Later, when water is descending from the heavens, we're going to have a different hand position, but we'll discuss that later. So why don't you guys bring your hands around behind you and come into that. It's just a good place for to heal your kidneys and soothe and clean your kidneys. I'll consult my notes. You guys stay right there. All right. How about here's another one from the 5 elements. This is great. So again, to get our hands back in front of us, we might just sort of play with the surface of the water here. But this is the fountain. And let me show you, this is great. Again, these Qigong, the older they are, the more variation there is. So I've seen, but one thing you'll notice that it all has in common is this movement, the backs of the hands are together. This is the one I don't like. This is the fountain that just comes up and goes, whoo. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that. But I like when the movements really express the thing that we're talking about. So this, in my opinion, is superior. The hands come together with the fingers up, not down, and the water starts to come up. And if you've ever looked at a fountain, sometimes the water, so how are we going to get our hands apart? Okay, sometimes the water falters and starts to fall back down, but then the water coming up underneath it will continue it upward eventually, and the water succeeds, and then the water comes down. So this movement embodies that, and that's a complex fountain. If you see a fountain that's doing that, you just can't stop watching it. And because it's just so interesting. You know what I'm talking about. When the water comes up, and then the weight of the water itself causes it to falter for a moment, and then the new water coming up underneath it just shoots it the rest of the way up, and you're like, yay. And that fountain, the height of that fountain can vary by a great deal. So that's a wonderful. So I like this one better, much, much better. Feels better on your wrists. So like that. And then anywhere you want, bring the hands around and then up. Excellent. I feel cooler already. And again, we're just cycling around in a simple movement pattern. We're not bringing the hands behind us each time. But that will be our starting and ending point. So that's a beautiful one. Okay, so and we play with the surface of the water in the fountain and come back to here. And you guys stand in your Wuji stance. Meditate for a moment. I'll consult my notes, see what we're going to do next. How about... let's go back to the Lotus Qigong set. Again, equally ancient, equally variable, and but wonderful movements. And everything about the lotus has to do with water, because the lotus floats on the surface, yet it has a stem that's anchored in mud. And throughout Asia, the lotus is revered as a symbol of divinity and cosmic knowledge, and divinity rooted in mud. So you have the two things, the yin and the yang of that. Really beautiful imagery, and it's just a beautiful flower. Another thing in Hindu mythology, this Mukula or Semana Mudra, this is the bud of the lotus flower. So that's adds even more. Okay, so so why don't we start here, since we just mentioned it? So we'll do. Let me look again. We'll review fair maiden gathers water and sprinkles it on the garden, and then we'll add the next movement, which is rain begins to fall. But then we'll just cycle through those two rather than going through the rest of the set, because it's a whole form, right? So, and this is good for our legs, right? This will wake our legs up. Okay, so here we go. And I think so you can just play with the surface of your water here. And then, let's start. So, fair maiden gathers water, just like it sounds. And we discussed the impossibility of this task, but there's something beautiful to it. And then fair maiden sprinkles the water on the garden. And when your arms come back as far as they can, we'll continue to the next movement, which is the arms come up, and then it's called either rain begins to fall. Now my hands are going to close as if I'm grasping something, and I'm going to sink down. And let's pause here with the hands at the height of the shoulders, please, sinking down as far as you're comfortable. Continuing to breathe. Okay, so again, I think we mentioned last week, the reason the hands are closed, this is also called ringing the temple bells. And it's also called, the lotus takes root. So this is this rooting feel. Okay, so let's allow the hands to come back down, play with the surface of your water, and then here we go. So this time the fair maiden gathers her water, we can press back up. There we go. And then scatter it over the garden. Why don't we just do 2 more of these, okay? But this is really good for your legs. You could do 10 of these if you wanted to. Remember your long, even breathing. Resist any temptation to hold your breath when we squat down like this. Only come down as far as you can without hurting your knees at all. Okay, so let's let the arms come back down. We'll do 1 more of these, as I mentioned. Okay, so gather water, come back up, come to the height of your shoulders, sprinkle it on the garden. Last time. Lotus takes root, or rain begins to fall, or ring the temple bells, or it probably has 5 other names. Breathing. Oh, there was another one too. Okay, so this time, 1 more time, or are we done? 1 more time, without pausing. Okay, so 1 more time without pausing at the bottom. There you go, that's a good idea. Because the pausing is optional, you guys. So here's the movement without the pause, and then we will return to our starting point. So I come all the way down here, and then why don't we just bring the hands back behind us and press up and stay here. So you guys stay here, but I forgot to tell you that other from the fifth element, this water movement, this is also called creation of 10,000 things. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so maybe you disobeyed me and you did that with me, but I wanted you to stay here. Okay. You guys can do whatever you want. You're at home. Let's see. So that was from the Lotus Set, and then our other favorite from the Lotus Set is turtle swims in the lake. I know you guys like this. I like it too. We can let our legs recover for a moment. So we'll start back here. This one, we're going to return here each time. This is part of this movement, right? And this is very turtle hands, right? Turtles, they have sort of these flat hands. This is another one that anytime we can gather information from the name of the movement, that's wonderful, right? I don't want to just throw these things away or throw them around like they're meaningless. Okay, so remember this one? So we sort of swim out here, and then you can release this hook hand and make your nice flat turtle hands. And they're going to start to come in, the elbows bending. And look at my right hand's on top. Not a big deal, but the right hand's on top. And then it's going to dip under. I'm not really stopping here. It seems like I stopped, but I didn't really stop. It's going to come out. Ooh, look at that. The right hand's underneath the left this time. Like I say, not a big deal. And then we'll return back to here. And out we come again. This time the left hand's going to come up around on top. No big deal. So the elbows sort of stay forward, you guys. And that hand dips underneath, and then your hands come right under your arms. And then back out again. See how that works? I could do this one all day. This is a really wonderful one. How about 2 more times? So I believe this time the right hand is going to be on top. Okay. And this will be our last time. Left hand on top. So you'll eventually figure out how much room you need to give yourself to make your hands be able to move freely. Okay, great. Okay, stand here, meditate. So you know what is, I was going to take a break now before we do our form, but I think we have time. So why don't we let's do the second stage of our Qigong straps. So remember last week I begged you to not use anything so that there was less risk of you hurting your shoulders. I still don't want you to hurt your shoulders, but today we can use something. And also another thing from that video, that little piece of string I used, you couldn't see that, could you? Sorry. Yeah, it's practically invisible. Anyway, but I didn't want it to be super visible. So remember how we started out with a side bend? And then also today I'll make it so you can actually see my hands when I lift them up. So I've just quadrupled my thing so it's about this wide, and I'm going to come back here and we're just going to come up here and just do a little side stretch. Remember how few side stretches there are in Qigong, right? And certainly none in our Tai Chi form. If you know different, you let me know somehow. So in yoga we would hold this a lot longer, but since we're all about movement and not stasis, let's just go from side to side. Okay, great. Okay, so then with your strap or string or rope or anything you want, or the sash to your bathrobe. So a lot of people measure straps and poles according to their height. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's more about your, for what we're doing, it's more about your wingspan. So if you can't extend your arms and still be hanging on to it, then your thing, it's too short and it's not going to work and you might hurt yourself. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit less than as wide as I can. And again, I'm holding this so loosely, you guys, so if this doesn't feel right, I could just drop my strap, right? But that's what we're doing here. So there's like this. Okay, very, very basic. And then we can come around to the side. So to not hit myself in the face, I'm gonna try just doubling this up. This ought to work. Okay, so we're gonna come around to the side and in back. So I can't drop my arms way down. Well, I guess I can. All right, and then to the other side. So we could go around and around and around like that. Actually, this is not wide enough, so I'm going to go back to where I was. Okay, we can go around and around, or we can go back the other way. Okay, I hope nobody's hurting themselves. Let's do one more, or no, you know what? And then we come into different things. Now, I really wasn't turning my body, but I like to turn my body much more. So I'm going to turn my body in the direction, and I'm coming around, and then back to here, turn this way, okay, other way. Okay, and then my personal favorite, violating all the rules, because our arms are straight, our strap is straight. No, I like this much better. Both arms bent. This is my favorite of all. Oh, this is the best. Turning, twisting, everything bent, no straight lines. There's a little bit of tension on this, just so that chi can move freely from arm to arm. I love this, but we won't overdo it. I don't want you to overdo it. Okay, be right back. Have a little water break. Thank you very much. We'll do our form. So remember, do your, if you like to do the form and test yourself before we do it together, that's great. Thank you so much. See you in a moment. All right, we're back. And let's see. So we were going to do our form. But before we do our form, we need, oh, we're joined by Baby Monster. Stay in the shot, baby. She likes it here at the dojo now. It's not so hot as it used to be. Before we do our form, I was saying that every week we should set a different intention for our form. And what does that mean? Like peace and love or something like that? It could, but it should be, I prefer it something that relates directly to how we're actually doing the form. What did you find there? So for instance, a neat intention is to imagine, since we're doing water this week, Again, imagine a bowl of water at the dantian, in the general area of the dantian, because the dantian is already like a ball or a bowl anyway. But if you imagine it, quiet. If you imagined it filled with water to the brim, and then you did your form in this way, you can't tip, you can't slosh. You have to be like an expert waiter. Okay, so that will be our intention. Even as you step, you can't rock over. So you'd have to keep your movements very level. And this relates directly to the movement that we want to study this week. In the first 8 movements of the form, we don't have any specifically pertaining to water, but we do, if you remember the Bagua, Tui or lake, that is the 8 energies that responds to that is Zhou or elbow strike, right? So we have elbow strikes the heart in our form. So let's review this. If you recall, if you don't remember where it occurs, I'm just going to rough out the form. We go here, we go here, we go there, we go there, we go. We do our shoulder strike, and then if you recall, we shift our weight, pivot our foot, and come over. So now our partner is behind us, so it doesn't really matter what you do with your arms. You can keep your arms. I've always said if you don't know what to do with your hands, hold a ball. You could sort of cradle a ball here. We're going to step up and over. Or if you wanted to, you could do this. They're not really, doesn't really matter, right? Because it's a, but anyway, so there's this side-to-side motion. It's an elbow strike. Elbow strikes the heart. And what we want to try not to do, I can explain it more by what we are not doing than what we are doing. So we are not overextending. And then we are trying not to like rock. It feels like we want to rock. The only problem with rocking is if you look at this exaggeration, the rocking has this coming up on either side. If we could, and this coming up would raise our chi and make us less stable. It would make us much less stable. So we want to. That's the reason that we want to avoid rocking. Otherwise, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. But when we move side to side, we're moving more in a flat plane, right? Rather than woo. And the only time you want to come up is if you're trying to uproot someone, and then you're doing it specifically for that reason. So so our form, the interesting thing about our form is it has us do the wrong thing so that we can discover what the right thing is. If we executed all our movements perfectly, the form would not proceed past the first movement because you would defeat your partner and then the form would be over or you'd hurt them, right? So there's flaws inherent in everything that we do, or rather than say flaws, let's say there's a counter. So what I'm getting at is this. So we do our shoulder strike or white ape swings through branches. We step over and then we shift to this side. Right is orange. And then we shift back left. Okay, so inherent in our form, well, first let me show you a couple things. It's just like our shoulder strike. We really don't want to come any further over than this vertical line that runs from the side of my foot up to my shoulder. So in our shoulder strike, we end right about there. And that sweet spot is very powerful. It looks like with all this movement that we're making a foot of movement, yeah, but the part that matters is only like an inch. And if you get it, It's a very powerful strike. If you miss it, you can't reach your shoulder. It's not, you've lost your power, right? But it doesn't matter. You move on to the next thing or you try something else. Same thing with the elbow. So the elbow is sort of like a shoulder strike with like a little bit of an extension. But you can't reach with this elbow. If you misjudged your distance or your partner moves away from you, you can't follow along. You just have to give it up. It didn't work. So I come out to here. So, or if I had my hands down here, it would be like that, maybe that far. So inherent in our form is this idea that we actually accidentally overextended, because our partner's next movement or corresponding movement is pull. They would gently pull our elbow, and so that's borrowing. So I go in for this elbow strike. They borrow my force and pull me out. The next movement, we're not going to do the whole form, explain the whole form, but the next movement would be to get my arm back. They borrow this movement and push. So I'd go, so any too much movement that I do gets exploited. So I go here a little bit too much, they pull me out. I retreat, they push me back, right? So this is why it's so important to hold your center, to underdo in these movements. I've said sometimes we can exaggerate, but I don't mean by exaggeration to lose your center. You never lose your center, right? So the proper way, so we would come around, to here, pivot, step up and over, and then go here. That's about far enough. They push me back. So then I start to borrow their force. They push me back. I turn that force into a back fist. And then we'll just do one more move. They negate my back fist simply by pushing my elbow up. And that I can't unbend my arm. I can't bend my arm the wrong way. So that's all you need to know about that sequence. So where do we get our power? If our movement is so limited and we're confined to this narrow space, then how do we possibly have any power in this? Well, it's all pretty much the same. It's with your intention. So without overextending, I'm thinking deep into my partner's chest, or even behind my partner, I'm thinking maybe over into the next block is where I'm imagining my elbow is going, and that's where that power comes from, right? But that intention is different than me actually going there. My mind is going there. So my mind is not here. If my mind is here, I lose my power. If my mind is through my partner's chest, right? So I'm sorry. Roseanne Barr said a joke. She said, the way to a man's heart is through his chest. So that's what we're doing. Elbow strikes the heart. All right, that's the Roseanne Barr move. Okay, so that's basically it. Now, we have a bunch of other things in our form that pertain to water, but we'll do them, they're later on in the form, so we'll do them after our first 8 movements. So that was our little lesson on elbow strikes the heart. And we'll do our form facing northwest. And I don't think we did that last week. At least I hope not. Yeah. All right. Let's do that then. So we'll do it. Oh, I hope we didn't do this facing northeast last week. Doesn't matter. We got plenty of weeks and lots of directions. So we'll do the A side. Here we go. So I've told you there's a lot of different ways of doing things. I had been telling you guys that Wuji stance, that I had learned a Wuji stance with the feet, with the heels together. But the more I study, that is so exceedingly rare, as I don't even want to perpetuate that. Sometimes I'm willing to go with what the majority says, and Wuji stance is basically our resting stance, right? Now, it translates into empty stance, but that's not what the majority of people call empty stance. Empty stance is your weight on your back leg, making this foot empty. What they mean by empty stance in your commencement, your beginning posture, is that you're not doing anything. That's what makes it empty, okay? So it's empty of movement, empty of form, but as we've mentioned, there's a ton going on in this stance, and I wish I knew which video to refer you to, but maybe we'll review it next week or the week after. So anyway, we start in our resting posture, or Wuji stance if you want to. And yeah, I don't think we've ever faced this direction. So this is northwest. So we sink, slide the foot up, left hand comes up right on your center, and then step through. Okay, circle around, coming into 7 stars. As these arms come up, that brings the left foot up. Later on in our form, I just lost my train of thought. Later on in our form, we use that upward motion to help us throw a kick, but not now. Okay, where were we? Okay, white crane, white ape swings through branches. Here we go, here's the movement that we did. Not yet. Step up and over. Elbow strikes the heart. Ring the gong. Strike a tiger. Strum the lute. Come around, inspect horse's mouth. And then a big circular movement with 2 half steps, bringing us back to dragon pose in our empty stance. And you could even, just to prove it's empty, you could pick up that foot. Okay, excellent. Great. So we'll do the B side next, and we'll just keep going around until we run out of space. Speaking of running out of space, I realized that you couldn't see my hands earlier. So before we're done, I will show you one of the movements where it might be helpful to see what my hands are doing. But let's go, we'll do the B side right now. Okay. Our Wuji stance, totally at ease. Please meditate here. If you're doing the form on your own, meditate until you're completely calm, focused, not thinking about going to Trader Joe's later, and then step back, dragon pose, single whip, strike a tiger right. So here's what I was mentioning. They come in with the elbow, and we pull the elbow. They head back the other way. We follow them and push their elbow out, and then come in with a shoulder strike. So we would be holding their arm up like this, but for our purposes, we can drop the arm. Okay, so where were we? So, and then draw the bucket from the well. Okay, shift back. We're going to pivot right. And this is our downward push. This is white snake, darts out its tongue. And then we'll continue on the A side, okay? So back to 7 stars. So I was going to show you, so we, later in the form, we kick here, but in our case, we throw a punch. Okay? And then white crane, white ape. Okay. Here we go again, our movement of the day. Up and over, shift right, shift left, elbow strikes the heart, ring the gong, Strike a tiger. Strum the lute. Inspect horse's mouth. Back to dragon pose. Ooh, I'm running out of space. Let's see what happens here. Oh. So we're back on the B side. Single whip. Strike a tiger. Pull and push. All right. This may only go around one more time. Draw the bucket from the well. Pivot. Push down. Oh, I'm back in the field again. White snake. Back on the A side. Here I come back to you guys. 7 stars. Carry hammer. White crane. White A swings through branches. Going a little faster. Here's our move of the day. Elbow strikes the heart. Ring the gong. Strike a tiger. Strum the lute. Inspect horse's mouth. So I believe, yeah, this is facing northwest. So we've done it at least 4 times. Okay, so that's our limit. It's not a marathon. Okay, great. All right, excellent. That was good. 4 times through is excellent. So now for the section, for those of you who are not working on the form, you need to have things you can do around the house that you can exercise your legs, especially. So we will do. So the element water corresponds in the 4 basic energies to Zhi, press, and we haven't talked about Zhi in a long time. So press is very interesting because they're very similar. So pong or ward off is like this. Push is like that. So what would this be? Isn't it a push? Isn't there some pong there? But these are very subtle things, right? So it's the palm of your hand, palm to palm. I'll take these off just for a sec. A little close up. It should fit in real nice, like that, right? And my fingers shouldn't be open like this. So just keep your hands relaxed. Okay. So and then if you were to go to the other way, classically, you'd shift. So we can do this as a little stepping drill instead of circle walking. I'm going to come way back here. We'll just use a very simple chicken step or cat step. Just our basic sort of zigzaggy step. And just to be completely clear, it's going to be my left hand in my right palm if I step out to the right. So the front hand is the same as the foot that's stepping out. And the back hand, and this is interesting. Let me tell you some of the qualities once we get going. So once we get going, we'll just keep moving. So I would step out and then press, and then I'm just gonna shift my hands. Okay. So one of the qualities of press that makes it different than those other 2 energies that I showed you is that it has these 2 different vectors. So I can change my direction that I'm pressing in very easily. So it's hard to predict where it's going or what it's doing, right? And it's also, so that's one quality, is this two vectors. See, two vectors by my arm going in, meeting in one spot. This spot can vary all over the place, right? And it's very difficult to figure it out. So another quality, press is also known as squeeze. So does it mean I'm squeezing my hands together? Well, not so much. It means that I'm squeezing into my opponent. So let's just do a couple more. So I'll give you an example. I really wish I had a second person here. I might use Pung to make contact with you, and then add press to squeeze into you. If I wanted to push you a long distance, I would do push, but press could be to squeeze into you for whatever reason, to maybe see how, are you stubborn, are you tense, are you going to yield, are you going to divert? I'm just thinking off the top of my head, right? So you might make contact with your ward off, and then add a press, maybe to be more confusing in terms of directionality. Ward off can really is pretty easy to predict. My push is very easy to predict what's going to go on, but my press is a little sneakier. So that's just some ideas. Another thing you may see people doing fajing. I've seen this, I don't know what this is. They go, like that. So they might call press. So they might lay their hand up against you and then go boom. So I don't really know why. But some of the things you might encounter out on the World Wide Web. So that's press. And then we'll do our version of needle at sea bottom, okay? And this is another one of those movements that interchanges subject and object. So some people call this the sinking needle, right? Other people call it finding needle. So the sinking needle, I am the needle, dropping to the bottom of the sea. And then other people call it needle at sea bottom. So I'm the needle sinking down. But then other people call it finding needle at sea bottom. So this is me looking for a needle on the sea bottom. So that's two different things. In one, I am the needle. In the other, I'm looking for the needle. This is all through the Tai Chi translations, this mixing up of subject and object. I find it fascinating. If it helps with your interpretation, great. If it's confusing, don't worry about it. So here's what happens in our form. We're doing repulse monkey. And you can notice that I'm doing the version that has the same hand and foot forward. There's another version where the opposite hand and opposite foot are forward, right? But ours is same hand, same foot. Okay, so what happens, we do it 3 times. On the final time, instead of moving back and defending, I really want to put some oomph into this and kind of move forward. So my partner crosses their hands and does 7 stars under my hand, right? And then as they come up, as I told you, they take a half step up, and now they're poised to kick my knee. So my sinking needle is 3 things. First, get my leg out of the way, step back, and then shift back and sink down. And this is, again, you don't put your mind here, Otherwise you have no power. My mind is way back here, and I'm just sinking down. You have tremendous sinking power if you do it that way. Okay, so we can let's come up. Well, let's see how we can do this. So let's that was right foot forward, left foot back. So let's try it. Let's try it with the other hand. Okay, so here, so come to here. So my weight's back, right? And then I shift forward. Okay. They do 7 stars. So they're about to kick my knee. So first thing I do is get my knee out of the way and then sink back into it and drag them down. So I'm dragging them down. But being good Tai Chi practitioners, they don't resist. They go down with me. They're going to borrow that downward force, turn it into a bounce, and they're going to bounce up off the floor and bring all that bouncing force right into my chest. But we're not going to go into the next movement. So let's, this is really good for our legs. Okay, so let's go back to the right foot forward, right hand forward. So that's my repulse monkey. And so here we go. So they're going to kick. So I shift forward. So my repulse monkey usually ends on my back leg. I shift forward. They're going to come kick this leg. So I get that out of the way. Shift back and then shift down. Basically 3 things. Okay. This is sort of a hooking motion. Okay. This is one of those things where it would be much better if you were here so I could see what you're doing, but we're doing the best we can. Left foot forward, left hand forward. So I just went bing like that. I shift forward. They do 7 stars. They're about to kick my leg, so I'm going to get that leg out of there. I guess there's more than 3 things. I'm going to shift back, hook over, sink down. I mean, sure, there's more than 3 things happening here. Okay, good. All right, good. So that's good for your legs. I can feel that. If you can do that, you can hit pause and do that as many times as you want. But I think we're pretty much good. And let's see. So we'll just do 2 more things. Let me show you. I'll step way back and just show you what goes on. You couldn't see my hands when we did the fountain. So remember, we started back here with our hands in that beautiful energy gathering upside down hook. So the hook in most of the Tai Chi form is down, but in this energetic movement, it's facing up. Okay, so we're here, and then we just come around. So just caress the surface of the water until, in fact, you could just, this is almost a Qigong movement here, until you're ready, and then we'll make our fountain. So you need to bring the backs of the hands together, fingers pointing up, right up the middle, and then the water begins to falter. And then fresh water comes up from underneath it and just continues it up. And you probably knew what was going on with my hands. They're just going like this. Yeah, it's a beautiful movement. And then why don't we just, I just wanted to make sure you saw that. Let's go back to where we were. Gather energy, cleanse the kidneys, break up any little stones that might be forming. Just dissolve them. All right, from here let's do our final Qigong. Again, this This corresponds to the water element. It's not exactly what we do, but it's close enough. Now, I have seen, speaking of kidneys, I've seen the exact reverse of this movement. I don't know what it's called, but it corresponds to the water element. And if you want, all right, I'll turn obliquely so you can kind of see what's going on. So I'm pulling back, dropping the arms down. So what would be the opposite of this? So the opposite, let me come back down again, would be, it's kidney oriented. So it comes up the back and strokes the kidneys and then pushes forward and then drops down. See how that's like exactly the opposite of what we were doing, but it's related because it's the other side of the coin. Stroke the kidneys up the back and then push out. Like it looked like I was arching my back there. I didn't mean to arch my back. So that's really beautiful. And again, I don't know enough about this variation to tell you the name of it or anything, but you come up the back, feel that energy in your kidneys. Push forward. So this is an interesting variation. I don't know if you can call the exact opposite of something a variation. How about one more? Whatever it is, I like this movement. So, oh, this is great. Okay, stand and meditate, please. Speaking of direct opposites, oh, this is great. Okay, this is perfect. This works out perfectly because we just did sort of the exact opposite of our normal closing Qigong, which is lifting water. And our proverb of the week is like exactly the opposite of what we did last week. So last week, our watery proverb was, stillness turns muddy water into clear water. And our proverb this week is like the exact opposite. It's cloudy water catches more fish. And just in case you don't fish or you don't know how to interpret that, I mean, I don't want to spoil it by interpreting it. It's just my interpretation. There could be a dozen interpretations. But it may mean that, well, fish bite at something, will bite at an unfamiliar thing a little bit more easily if they can't quite see it very well. But what it would mean would be that chaos brings with it opportunities. So, thank you so much. Thank you for your interest. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. And it's such a pleasure to do this with you. And we will see you next week. Oh, my laptop crashed. I have no idea when this video is going to get to you. So I'm in advance. I'm telling you, thank you so much for your patience. And I hope you didn't worry about me if the video was several days late. And we will see you next week.